Male victims, it should be about legal rights only. Lines are being increasingly blurred between rational arguments against neo leftist ideology and falling into the trap of going too far with playing them at their own game. Here's what I see going on: hypocrisy in feminism and other victim movements and ideologies have been exposed and thoroughly dealt with by rational people. For example, statistics show males are just as likely to suffer from domestic abuse as women, often feeling unable to come forward because they would not be believed, etc. Men are also daily victims of institutionalized sexism. For example, the terms manspreading and mansplaining came about as a result of women's need, or the need they have been brainwashed to believe they have, to be protected from the reality that they are different to men. Countless people, including libertarians, anarchists, Christians, the right, the alt-right, and basically anybody who has the integrity to use common sense in the face of massive opposition to do so, have come back with counter arguments which will trump all of the hypocritical claims made by victim movements. The arguments have been turned in on themselves as the reality has come full circle. Whilst women were not given equal legal rights before, now they have. And they are now more privileged than men, legally speaking. Whilst gays were not given equal legal rights before, now they have. And, well, you can see where I'm going with this. And so, as victim movements, not satisfied with equal legal rights, but seemingly determined not to stop until they've managed to crush the will and free thought of even the strongest, most rational people, continue to shout to demands to take away the freedom of their fellow human beings. Normal people have pushed back by pointing out that not only do these victim movements already have equal legal rights, but they have become a privileged class, having more legal rights than the group they previously had fewer rights than. Victim movements, not being able to argue against this, have now moved their demands from legal rights to demanding that people think, act, and speak in ways which they approve of. The trap the non leftists have fallen into, and there may be an argument that the alt right is controlled opposition partially due to this fact, is that rather than exposing the hypocrisy and moving on, they swallowed the left's bait to move from rational speech into irrational speech, making the non leftists look just as foolish as the left. Let me give you an example. And there's a meme here with a guy sitting in a room, he crying against a wall, and it says, "Stop domestic violence." And the meme says, "Just because I'm male doesn't mean she can't hurt me. I'm human too, but nobody believes me." Take a look at this meme. Men indeed are victims of domestic violence, which is heartbreaking and traumatic for many of them. However, what this meme should say is, just because I'm male doesn't mean she can't hurt me. I'm human too, but no one believes me. But if I leave, she will lie in court and I will not be able to see my children, and she will take all of my money. In short, we need to stop answering the victim movements by playing the victim ourselves and arguing from emotion, and stick to the tangible point: legal rights. I feel sorry for this man. It is terrible that his mother probably abused him, and he's now the victim of a bipolar woman who's been brainwashed into hating him and thinking it's her right to abuse him. But he is an autonomous human being, and the abuse is not the issue. He chose to remain his mother's victim by not seeking help. He chose to be with the abuser. He can leave, technically speaking. In reality, he is trapped because as soon as he leaves, the woman, armed with the full backing of the law, will take his children and his money. That, my friends, of the issue, not men and women being bastards to each other and abusing each other. And I do want to add here that it's nothing to do with me not having sympathy for men. What I'm talking about is that that shouldn't be coming into the argument. We should stick to the topic of legal rights. Another example is the MGTOW community. I have many good things to say about MGTOW, and it's good that these men talk about playing women at their own game to show their being. But then rather than move on from this depth of the irrational, many of them carry on feeding into it. Instead of showing that they are morally superior to women by setting an example, many MGTOWs pride themselves on acting like the women they criticize, sleeping around and shit testing. This is where a person does not speak or act from a genuine place, but tests another person's intentions because they do not have the discernment required to make a judgment whilst being honest. At best, it's a female evolutionary way of weeding out beaters. And at its worst, it's a form of manipulation. Yes, MGTOWs pride themselves on acting like manipulative women, the thing they hate to claim to hate. They claim this is because women are so manipulative that the only way of knowing a woman's true intention is to test and trap her. Yet they wax lyrical about how much they know about female nature and how easy it is to work out their agenda. MGTOWs also describe in detail how they are victims of women, never admitting to any fault of their own, reducing men to incompetent victims who do not have the wisdom to take charge of their own lives and decisions. When arguing with leftist ideology, it is important to make distinctions between legal rights and thought policing. Today, I was the victim of a racist attack. I was called a honky on a radical feminist journalist Facebook page. The journalist then liked the comment. This is a woman who speaks out against all manner of isms, including racism, yet she could not see the hypocrisy of her own approval of the racially based name calling I had just experienced. Of course, I was tempted to point this out, but I now refuse to get embroiled in leftist thinking in any way at all, and I let the comment stand as it was, recognizing the freedom of opinion rights of the man who called me the name and not stooping to their level of playing the victim card. Feminism has already been debunked in light of its ideology versus reality. Really, we need say no more about it and just stand strong in our rational arguments, holding a clear stance in the truth and passing that on where we can. We've fallen into the trap of arguing with a tantruming child. Instead of calmly repeating our arguments, we attempt to argue with emotionalism and foolishness, degrading ourselves and plunging our rational arguments into a sea of nonsense, bringing us down to the level of the leftists. They couldn't beat us in our arguments. We won. We are already victorious. But instead of standing in that victory, we have bought into their need to control us by fighting stupid with stupid. I, for one, am attempting to avoid using alt right buzzwords such as libtard and I will not attempt to show the left's hypocrisy by throwing victim cards back in their faces. They have proved themselves to be wholly dishonest and brainwashed. They did not listen to perfectly clear arguments which explained reality to them. And we need to stop thinking we can make them come around by joining them in resorting to arguments from emotion. Thank you for listening.